IVM.
Hi, I'm Satyajit.
Hi, I'm Racheta.
Welcome to Paperback by the Open Library Project.
We have as our guest today Milan Vora. In the first half of this special Valentine's Day episode, we discuss her first title, The Love Asana, as India's first Mills and Boons author.
In the second half, we discuss Milan's latest title, Our Song, and other short stories written by her available to buy on Valentine's Day. Happy listening!
You believed him? Andrew looked at the bleakness in Ragini's eyes and his heart ached at what the rest of the story would bring. Ragini nodded. I believed him because that's what I've always thought. Music is fluid. It doesn't understand diktats and tight rules. Yes, I know that every form has its rules, but the magic is in the bending and flexing of whatever you can within those broad boundaries. So you went on stage and you performed your Universal Ramayana. Ragini laughed, a hollow, humorless laugh. Then, just as I was at the green room door, Girish moved to take the tanpura from me. I was struggling with my sari, worried about tripping over it. The pallu had slipped. The announcement with my name had just finished. I was trying to fix it and give him the tanpura safely at the same time, and his hand moved to my blouse. What did he do? Andrew couldn't imagine what the naive 18-year-old Ragini went through, and rage flashed through his body. Tell me, he said. Ragini shrugged. Pinched me. Andrew blinked, uncomprehending. He pinched my nipple and twisted it so hard that I can still feel that shooting pain even now if I ever think about it. Andrew was aghast at the horror of it. Did you slap him? I hope you shamed him, he asked. Ragini shook her head. I've played that scene so many times in my head. I could have done any of those things when I was so shocked and aching physically. Yet I went onto the stage and started to play the tanpura and switched on the track to my Universal Ramayana composition. The other accompanists all took the cue and started performing the Universal Ramayana too. Andrew took Ragini's hands in his. That is unbelievably brave. To carry on must have taken a lot of will and courage. All of Andrew's intentions to keep a physical and emotional distance from Ragini melted away. He kissed her tenderly on her forehead. You're one hell of a woman. You know that, don't you? One hell of a fool, that is what I was, Ragini said. The painful memories were setting, but that light little kiss on her forehead and then nose. He was kissing her on the nose now, right here on the company campus. I still threw myself into that song. Oh, Andrew, I think of that scene, all those ustads there, entourages in the audience, each one steeped in tradition, old school perfectionists taught to find it hard to acknowledge that a gharana other than their own could do any justice to a rag. Gharana, Andrew said. A lot of grrr in that sound. He made it sound cute.
Thank you, Milan Vora. That was an extract from her book, Our Song. We'll be right back after this.
If you love cricket, listen up. The Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast is here for you. Hosted by DJ, Varun, and me, Ashwin, we bring a fun, fresh fan's point of view to talking all things cricket. Sometimes it's just the three of us, sometimes we have guests, including current and former international cricketers. For new episodes every week, check out the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast on the IVM app, website, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to Paperback by the Open Library Project. I am your co-host Satyajit, storyteller and entrepreneur. I'm hosting this podcast with my co-founder at the Open Library Project, Racheta Sharma.
Hi guys, my name is Racheta. I'm an ex-banker, social impact entrepreneur, podcaster, writer, and publisher. You can check out my deliberations on Instagram at neural_pathways and my articles for Thrive Global India. The Open Library Project is a curated library service which is offered to corporates on a subscription basis. The idea here is to create value, build a knowledge community, and encourage a growth mindset amongst our members.
We have as our guest today Milan Vora. Milan is a prolific writer and advertising person and India's first Mills and Boons author. Milan's latest title, Our Song, is a romance novel centered around music. Hey Milan, welcome to the show. It's great having you on the show. That was a awesome extract you read out from your book, Our Song. So before we get into the book itself, let's talk about your journey as an author. You've been an author for so many years, and what it's kind of been like for you.
First of all, thank you so much. Thank you, Satyajit. Thank you, Rachita, for having me here.
It's our pleasure.
I've been hearing your podcast, and it's a pleasure to be on it.
Thank you.
And talking books is something that that comes second to writing and reading them. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
It's great to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you wanted me to talk about my journey.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, Satyajit, that when I was in college, and I, like a lot of people, I ended up doing something that my parents wanted me to do. My dad wanted me to study economics, and I had my heart, which was somewhere always kind of linked with literature, reading, writing. But at that time, writing as a career was not something that really presented itself the way we're seeing a lot of people already. At 13 and 15, they're publishing books and so on. It wasn't an option. And the only option that, that kind of came to me even after college was to say, okay, I'll get into advertising.
Right.
Where also you are creating stories, you're observing people. And there was a lot of interesting work that was coming out at that time. There was, campaigns like the Fevicol one, where even in a short format, even in the 30-second story, you had guys who were all clinging on for dear life onto a bus, and you could see that there was fun in the building of a story, even if it was that for that very short span of time.
True.
So that's how, in my head, I would say that the storytelling started taking a shape.
In your advertising
I have a cousin who actually tells me that he remembers a story that I wrote when I was 9 years old.
Okay.
And I don't remember it, but he told me the other day that, the first line in the story was, that it was about a man, and it says, and he let out a soft sigh from the top and a long sigh from the bottom. And so I have no idea what and where that story was going. But clearly, there was fun in building a world and engaging people in your imagination.
Yeah, that's wonderful, actually. And you also, I think have been the first author from India who, wrote with Mills and Boons. So, how was that experience, and how did you, get to writing that book?
Rachita, I've talked about this often because also it made a lot of news when it happened. This was in the year 2009.
Right.
And it took me by surprise also that it generated so much interest. And that's when I realized that, there was so many generations of women, not just my mother's generation, but grandmothers and so on, who had grown up reading Harlequin romances. It was synonymous with romance. And when I had entered that contest that they had to look for a writer, to be the first Mills and Boon author in India, I'd done it on a whim and, on an anniversary night, as I repeated the story very often. But for those who haven't heard it before, it was an anniversary night where the anniversary wasn't really very romantic. There were house guests who were demanding and all that. And so I wrote that story of thinking there must be a little more romance to life than this.
Right.
And, then I was told I've been the shortlist, and I was invited to come to Bombay and attend the event and all that. And it all became very exciting in that moment.
Right.
But it was only later that I realized that it was really a big deal in terms of there were so many people who connected with Mills and Boon, and then they have so many of their own kind of coming of age sort of stories with it, how they hid it, how they read it, or some who, even had their, access to it, without any kind of, issues. So everybody had their own little story to go with it. But for me, I think the biggest part of that experience was a two-way kind of learning, because then I started working with the editors in UK, and I realized that while they were looking at India, but they didn't yet have any exposure to India. There was no India editor or even anyone who had traveled to India for that matter. So there was no India sensibility in that sense. So I felt like the fun was to do it if you could actually make it something which was very reflective of India, and the way we were then 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like as if I was kind of also telling them, but this is how it is in India, this is how people feel. There's certain things where, like say arranged marriages, which are kind of still, being, accepted by people. And even now we will find that, there are many, cultures where it's okay. You will at least agree to meet somebody or see somebody,
Right.
and so they had no idea that that kind of thing happened in India. And for me, I mean, it's one thing if you have been a person who's enjoyed reading romance or seeing romance, but when you get down to writing it, you're actually in your head, you're trying to break it down, right? What is it that you enjoy?
Yeah.
And and also to make sure that you understood what conflict was, what was it that keeps that energy going in that story.
Right.
So there was all that ended up taking much longer. And I also realized that I hadn't realized that I was actually kind of entering a turf that nobody had. So once I'd got into it, I realized that I was actually getting into what so far had been really a lot of. I mean, it's it's like saying that for an Asian market or for an Indian market, but largely there were mainly people who were whites who were still writing for India. So I was entering a completely unexplored territory so far, so to speak. To the extent, the funny story is, Satyajit Rachita, that before my book came out, there was, like I said, it garnered so much interest and attention that I was quite taken aback also myself. So there was an interview that I was asked to come on BBC, which was with this lady called Jenny Murray, and she is still running this very, very iconic show called Women's Hour on Radio 4.
Right.
And she has interviewed everybody from, like I say this, from the Queen, as in the royal Queen, to the Queen, the band, So Jenny Murray has seen it all kind of thing. And, you were going to be in an interview with her.
Right.
And there was this author, very famous author for Harlequin called Penny Jordan. And Penny Jordan and I were on it. And I was like the new kid on the block. And Penny Jordan had been writing romances for 30 years. So at that point in time, they asked me to select a scene and said that, okay, we will have it dramatized and aired, because the book still had to come out.
Right.
The funny thing was, like I was saying, that this not even an understanding of India and, the story is set in India. So what they must have done is, even to enact that scene, I think they must have just told their producers that go get Asian voices.
Right.
So when I started hearing it, I immediately recognized that all the actors are Sri Lankan, and I had a Sri Lankan friend at that time, and it's a very distinct accent, as are many accents, and we can identify even from what part of India the person may be from.
Right.
So that was the kind of background that I was getting into, where even on a show like BBC, I mean, they're saying, okay, it's Asian, fine, let it go, we're going to have that scene being enacted and aired worldwide, with Sri Lankan actors with distinct Sri Lankan accents.
Yeah, and
so that was the kind of background that I was getting into writing that first book.
Also, in context to what you said, like this being the first time you were writing for Mills and Boons, and I think that one of the struggles that authors face is, especially women, is like, I feel like we have this responsibility of, when we're writing, including a woman's voice and what you want to really, propagate in terms of women's rights. So I think that, when I write, when I get to, putting something down, especially in relation to women, I want to make sure that the character is reflecting as strongly as we want women to be today. So, like, in context to that, do you have any a growth that you've seen in your, female protagonist over the years while writing, where you feel like, your character of the female has kept changing and evolving?
Well, it's very interesting you asking me that, and kind of timely also, because, what happened was that with the first book that came out, eventually came out in 2010, and, Harlequin have this thing that they actually put books on the shelf only for a month. So the books are taken off, and because the people who read them they need their, their new titles every month. So they kind of then take those off the shelf, and then So many times people would ask me for that book, and it wasn't available after it had been, sold in a huge bestseller in South Africa and, whatever markets they put it into. The book wasn't around now.
Fantastic.
So I had taken the rights back, and then when I started reading it, I realized that what I allowed my characters to do even then 10 years ago, it just didn't sit well with me now.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
because there has been a lot of change in the way we've seen people react to situations. So even if certain things were sort of okay, in the romantic sense, like say even if you look at films like which was on with Demi Moore, An Indecent Proposal,
Right.
it created shockwaves, and it when it came out. But today you'd feel very angry, and your reaction would be very different.
Right.
And let's not forget that it's in the context of Me Too and everything that's happened, and it's happened globally. It's not just in one part of the world somewhere. So
Absolutely.
So when I relooked at book, I realized that I wanted to rewrite my characters, and that's a major rewrite. It's not just saying, okay, I'll change a few scenes.
Right.
So I decided that I would make Pari a woman who had a lot more, agency. She pushes back when the guy is trying to push her into an uncomfortable situation. He's got his reason and motivation for doing so, but she doesn't need to take it, without a fight.
Right.
And so I make sure that is represented very well and strongly, so that people reading it today can say, yeah, you can't just allow that, and you would also respond strongly. So she kind of threatens, and she says, what are you trying to suggest? I'll go out right now and I'm going to talk to the media and I'll tell them what you're trying to say or suggest or whatever.
Right.
And he likes that also. While I'm giving her a lot more agency, I also then need to reflect the kind of men that we are more attracted to, and the men that we as women today like are men who are treating you completely as equals,
Right.
and also are more aware of what you face, and are more able to be in touch with their emotions, if not in the beginning, but at least as the character's graph progresses in the book, you should be able to see that shift in him, that he is also becoming more aware, more sensitive, and more involved, more respectful, along with all the other things, along with the chemistry and the attraction and all of which is part of the dynamic in any romance.
Right.
So I needed to bring in those changes. I also thought that when I wrote The Lavasan, the first book, my kids were teenagers. They were like babies, and both of them were kind of just getting into new schools at that time, and I was quite concerned that because it was a book that had a lot of attention because of being the first MNB.
Right.
I was very concerned that my kids should not bear the brunt of any bullying or teasing or anything. People say, aha, your mom wrote this or whatever. I didn't want them to. Yeah, I mean, so I remember thinking, and the publisher was very keen that, that they kept saying, no, your voice is, more modern. Let it have that, why are you holding back, and so on. So I said, no, I'm going to do what's in within my comfort zone at that point in time. So now when I rewrote the book again, my kids are older, and I don't feel, I don't feel that holding me back in any way. And I think, so I could also give myself, that liberty to write without any kind of a holding back. So the revised version, which is called Head Over Heels, has a lot of these things which are now different from the original that people may have read.
Fantastic.
Wonderful.
And you mentioned that you got the rights back for the original, and where's that available now?
So this book, the book that was originally published was called The Lavasan, and it's been republished. Yeah, and it's been republished on Kindle. So it's available on all Amazon platforms around the world and on KDP. So for Kindle Unlimited subscribers, it's a free-to-read book called Head Over Heels.
Okay, fantastic.
Great.
And on that note, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after this on this very special Valentine's Day episode.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you are not following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Storytel and TheWholeTruthFoods.com. So, great week on the network. Number of really, really interesting shows for you guys to check out. Here are a couple of the ones that I would like to highlight for you. Check out This Round Is On Me. Gauri Devi Dayal talks to her husband Jay Yusuf about mixing business and pleasure. They're the husband and wife business partners at Food Matters Company. Give it a shot. Really fun show. On Naan Curry, they speak about chaat, the queen of the street foods. A fun episode, they canvass the beauty and romance of street food, its cultural importance in a city, and they also discuss the unfortunate harassment that street vendors sometimes go through. On Paisa Vaisa, we had Madhuchanda. They join Anupam talking about the budget and the different aspects of it. Storytellers and Storytellers feature Shreyansh Pandey, creator of Kulak, a great conversation and some interesting insights into facilitating and nurturing writers. Do check that out. On Thale Harate, the Kannada podcast, Mansi Prasad spoke to Pawan Srinath about the history and appreciation of Indian music. It's a really interesting conversation. They discuss classical music and how it evolved in India, what are the various musical instruments and how they developed. Really, really fun, interesting stuff. And with that, let me get you back to your show.
Pari ran her eyes over the studio again. She could sense the spell he seemed to have cast over everyone. Granted, he was a fine specimen, but it was obvious by that slight twitch on his lips and the way he had coolly kept his arms still raised that he was just trying to grab attention. Clearly, it was time he was taught a thing or two. All right then, let me see how good a learner you are. Pari nodded at the new student. He rose to his feet and covered the distance between them in a few easy strides. He carried his mat with him and laid it out way too close to hers at the front of the class. Her eyes registered the black ganji that left his arms gloriously exposed. Vivan, that was the name casually written in block letters on a sticker on his ganji. The receptionist had obviously insisted on it, as she usually did with all the new students. Stretch your arms out above your head like this. Let's begin with a good spinal stretch, Pari instructed. Would that be the erector spine as well? Vivan asked, his face innocence itself as he stood and stretched himself with the ease of a large, graceful cat. I sure could do with working on that. Pari felt herself tense, wondering what he was up to now. But the man just made a half turn to innocuously point to his lower back. I see you've been doing your anatomy homework, she said dryly. Well, it's more the practicals that I seem to be drawn to, he drawled. We don't need to know all that, Pari huffed. I'd rather you talk less, please, and focus instead on working on the positions you're here to learn. Ah, the lady prefers less talk. Must remember that in future. Pari almost snorted in disgust. The innuendo was not lost on her, and by the look of it, some of her other students were looking pretty cottoned on. It really annoyed Pari that the balance she'd struck with her students between propriety and a personal connection was being breached by this Vivan in just a few moments. Not in the future. Remember it now. And please remember, the only reason you're here is to learn yoga.
Thank you, Milan Vora. That was an extract from her book, Head Over Heels. So for our listeners, we have a very special offer. You can write Head Over Heels is available on Kindle Unlimited to read, and you can write a review on Amazon using the hashtag paperback, and Milan will send you the top 3 reviews will get a signed copy of Milan's new book, Our Song, a signed author copy of Our Song for the top 3 reviews. So listeners, please go ahead and read the book on Kindle Unlimited and post your reviews. Use the hashtag paperback, and we look forward to sending you your free copy for the best 3 reviews out there. So very generous of you, Milan, to send out these signed author copies of your new.
The last date for it is 28th of Feb. We are looking forward to your reviews, and we shall be sending you the signed copies as soon as we know the top 3 reviews. Yes.
It's a pleasure to do this. And when you have a community called Paperback, I mean, the least you can do is make sure that you send a book at least, So I'm looking forward to reading everybody's reviews. Please read it, guys, and leave reviews, even if it's a couple of lines. It's really something that every author treasures, to get feedback. And I think the most wonderful thing about when you actually, this has been my first time that I've self-published, and so far been with your mainstream publishers. So I think one of the most rewarding things has been the instant kind of feedback that you keep getting. I just love it.
Absolutely. I think, it's one of the things that keeps writers going. So I'm hoping that we get an overwhelming response for this. And in context to the excerpt that you just read, so, because this is a Valentine's Day episode, I had a question for you, Milan. So, because you write love stories, what do you think, is really holds people together, and a few probably characteristics of love that you must have shown in your books, which you think is what really keeps people together.
I know this is going to sound really cliche, but I think that the obviously chemistry,
Right.
Chemistry is what sparks anything off. So obviously that's there. But I think that honestly think that if there isn't respect for the other person, is probably going to become a big factor in a relationship crumbling. So if there is a respect for what the other person does and an acknowledgement of it, I think a lot of things that we hear, but they are actually coming from truths,
Right.
To be able to express what you feel. If you really think that your partner, whether you've chosen to marry or not, or whether it's same sex or not, or different, all of it. I mean, just saying that the person that you're with, if you actually like certain things about them, it's also important to communicate that, so communication, and coming from a place of genuine respect for each other.
Right.
And at the end of the day, I think that actions speak louder than words. So I really believe that if there is somebody that you're going around saying I love you, or you whatever, it must show in your actions, because that's what really counts.
Yeah, like they say, love me in verbs and not in adjectives.
True, very true.
Yeah.
So Milan, let's talk about our song a little bit. And this is a book that's centered around music and love. So did you have any personal experience while writing about music? Because it's not something that we read quite often about in novels.
When I started writing it, I just I realized that how much music has played a very large part in my life, and I realized that for almost, and I find that it's serendipity that, any kind of mood I'm in, I always find that that kind of song will start coming at that time into your head. It's so steeped into us.
Right.
And particularly, I think Indians, the fact that we've grown up with Bollywood is such a big part of our lives. So all of our movies were musicals, up until recently, where, it was rare that is picture mein gaane nahi hai.
Right.
So music in any case is such a big part of our lives. And in my case, I also used to learn music a little bit when I was young.
Nice.
And I kept breaking off. But I think that what it did for me was when I started, even when I started advertising, I found that it was, for me, if I had to write lyrics also for anything, typically I wouldn't need to go to somebody else. You could write it, even for
Right.
your own commercial that you were writing.
Right.
In fact, there was once a time when I was working on a campaign for a lingerie brand, and that particular script had, I had planned it as a karaoke kind of a scene where there were these 3 girls out on a night, and they were all at this karaoke bar. And the song that I had written was, Girls Just Wanna Have Fun, the Cyndi Lauper one.
Right.
But when we went to get rights, you found that it was going to cost you more than the production cost of making those 3 films, and a large part of your media budget just to get the rights, And so the client who knew me well, she said, why don't you just write a song, And we were sitting in Hungary at that time, we were in the process of some pre-production work, and I wrote it. So I found that music was kind of, for me, it was always very much, and one of the first things that I wrote, in fact, much before I wrote books, was a musical comedy, which was when I went to do a playwriting workshop with Mahesh Dattani, who I keep, I can never thank enough, because I think the fundamentals of understanding how to build characters, how to start constructing plot, how to plan, your writing and so on, I learned from him. So the first thing that I wrote, again, I kind of gravitated towards writing a musical comedy with full of songs and lyrics and, humor built into that. So when I started writing this, I found that this turned out to be a great personal experience also, because, I had to research music. I mean, what can be more fun than that? So every time I had to go back into something, instead of writing, I would just spend the whole night, now researching a rag and each and every variant, and discovering so many different rasas which were there in each each rag, So I would keep going deeper and deeper. In fact, I would have to keep extricating myself from it and say, whatever, for those 3 nights of thing on that one rag, you're going to actually use that one line and time to come out of that, hole again. But it was good. It was really, it was just something so close to my heart that, I think that I should have written this book much earlier and fully immersed myself at a time when, even when I was learning music, I would have done it. But the other thing it did was, having learned music, like people keep saying, so did you not have to research? I said, completely had to. But what that learning did was it kind of at least gave me directions in terms of saying, okay, this is what I need to now go and explore,
Right.
or that, at least instead of one whole big, huge black hole that you've gone into, at least you know what paths you want to take.
Absolutely.
So, Milan, one of your other titles has also been acquired to be converted by one of the big studios. So, TikTok Under 30. And
No. It's called TikTok We're 30. Here you go.
TikTok We're 30. I'm sorry. And tell us a little bit about this title.
This book, is very, very special to me because I wrote it initially I wrote it as a revenge thing, for my friends, because I had this bunch of friends that I grew up with in Delhi, and we all went our own ways after college, and we all kept planning, that we're going to meet, and let's meet at least, this year, that year, and then once everybody's gone off, we're on different continents, time zones, we can't even get to coordinate a phone call, for God's sake.
Right.
So where is the reunion going to happen? We're looking at people with at least 6 different time zones that need to be convenient for everyone. So the Australia ones are always saying, why is the call always starting at 11:30 at night, and and we're saying no, 7 is a good time, we'll get our drinks out. So that reunion though is a very long way off, So I had decided that I'm going to write a reunion and I'm going to make it such fun. I'm going to create characters who are so much fun. So so these guys will now then actually get spurred and they will plan that reunion.
Wow.
It didn't happen.
Wow.
It didn't happen. But they all loved the book. They read it, and so we had a lot of giggles over it. And what happened was, and the book is not based on in terms of anybody's real life. It is all fictitious. So which was even more fun because then I could take more pangas. I could create a lot of characters. I had one guy who's a conspiracy theorist, and and it's also more. It's like it was for me coming. This book came right after the first book, which was the Mills and Boon. Where like I wrote under. With like I think I mentioned to you when we were speaking just before the call that writing for Mills and Boon was like writing for a franchise.
Right.
So if you're writing for if you were writing a Disney film or a Pixar film, that there is a certain expectation of a certain kind of film, that there is going to be this kind of, at least it goes towards a happy ending, even if it is, each film is different, but there is an overall expectation from that franchise and that experience that you go when you go to see a Pixar film. So similarly with the Mills and Boon, it came with certain things that they believe work, when you're writing romance. For instance, they don't like secondary characters. So it has to be primarily about the hero and the heroine.
Okay.
So when I was writing the second book, I wanted to like completely leave all that behind me. I've got 12 main characters and then secondary characters.
Right.
That's like, saying from 2 to 12 I've gone and I need to juggle all of it. So it was, for me, it was almost like saying, okay, now this is like me, how, completely free myself from all those other things that came with writing that thing. And more about, I would say this was less romance, but more about revisiting old friendships, the kind of fun that you can have when you're with old friends. I was like able to re-examine, what happens when you meet your old friends after a long time. Do you go back to being the way you were when you were in college, but you're not, right? You've also come that much time away from it. So you have changed. So, and that's going to come into the picture soon enough.
True.
And also there'll be old baggage that you've carried with you from then. There's going to be unworked out stuff. And I had a couple in the book who had hooked up when they were in college. So you know what happens when you have those school sweethearts and college romances, if you're meeting those people 10 years later, that relationship will also have gone through its own dynamics. And it was also like very interesting. I kept thinking, is it possible to have chemistry with somebody who you knew well in college, and nothing happened then? No sparks were flying, nothing, But what happens if you meet 10, 15 years later? Is it even possible?
Yeah, so true. Because people change a lot over time. So it's absolutely possible, I guess, that,
Yeah, and I find that forget 10 years, Rachita, I mean, like if I speak to on school groups, as we know, there are still people who are assuming that you are at that same point that you were, you're still that same person when you were 16 or 18, and you've still got grudges that I know so-and-so told me that you said this. And 40 years later, or whatever, 30 years later, you'll still be carrying that with you, But yeah, this was written as a humorous book with romance, because I do like romance, so why not have romance also as part of it. And then the nice thing was, the happy thing for me was that I had taken this book to Pune Lit Fest, and over there, a person who I was told that guy is the one who directed Ragini MMS, and he was a very distinct looking guy with glasses with red frames or white frames. Every day there was a different frame, and so I did notice him, and he came and he took, he came and he got a copy, and he asked for a signature. And I was in fact saying, like, let me give it to you. And he said, no. He wouldn't, he said, no, I insist on buying all my books. And it was forgotten, and you were connected on social media as, normally when you've met somebody who's interesting from the same industry. And many years later, he connected and he said, would you be interested in, having this book adapted to screen? So he had now gone into, this is Siddharth Jain, and he is now one of the biggest guys who's doing, book to screen adapts. And in fact, now he's also, getting into production and backing certain books himself.
Wonderful.
Because he knows both the worlds very well. So yeah, and he was very good. Yeah, I mean, because for me, I had no clue about that world at all. And he completely guided me in terms of, don't take this offer. He said, you'll get a better offer, then another offer, saying like, okay, now do it like this. So he's really been, it's actually, he's a guy who now most authors, want to, have on their team. If, you could at least have your seen by him itself. Yeah. Is a big thing. And he got me a really good studio. And I'm hopeful something will come out of it.
And we are excited.
We're excited to read the book as well as see the on-screen adaptation.
Same here. And, I can't even imagine. Like, I just wonder how it would be. And I think it's a good thing that I don't know what's happening, because otherwise you'd probably want to get really into it, which is the other thing.
Right. Fantastic. And we've been speaking a lot about romance since it is a Valentine's Day episode. But Milan, you do write outside romance as well. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Satyajit, the interesting thing was that even before I wrote that story that won the Mills and Boon contest, I had been writing short stories, and I don't know how. It had just started happening organically. There would be times and something, some trigger would happen, and I would want to come back and give a say a different spin to a stimulus that happened. So I've been writing stories with no concept even of, I might send it to a publisher or anything like that. And they were all very different from what I'm writing now, in terms of I don't think there was any that was a romance. They were mainly related with, I would just say, women's issues, maybe just basic humanistic issues that, something would just bother you so much that you wanted to come back and write about it at night. Right. Some fragment of a conversation about adoption or something about a gender identity, and I would want to come back and write about it. Or, for example, I remember the very first story I wrote, which was about child sexual abuse, and eventually, in fact, that story, when it came out, I remember it. We had a long discussion, the editor and I, on it, on the way it ends, because what I had done was something that was started making people a little uncomfortable, because my trigger in my head was that a lot of people who are molesters are people who have been molested themselves, So I was looking at what causes that transition, from being at one end of it to say, I'm going to go there and be that.
Yeah.
And then I started writing it from a child's point of view, which made it even more uncomfortable as a subject. Because a child doesn't have the vocabulary, even if when the child is being, abused or molested or whatever, but they don't even know what it is. So often it's disguised as a game by the person, and very often it's always a known person who's, doing it to the child.
Yeah.
So this story is called It's a Game We Play. So a lot of my stories had been getting into areas that I felt that I needed to express and do. So unfortunately, there aren't that many takers for short stories, and every time if somebody reaches out and says we have an anthology and would you like to contribute, I'm very happy to do it, because at least it has some chance of being read by somebody out there, or sitting with you in your folders.
Right. Yeah. Fantastic. And so Milan, we are going to end the episode with you reading an extract from one of your short stories. But before we end the episode, where can people reach out to you on social media?
So you can reach me. The best is to DM me on Instagram, which I'm fairly regularly looking at. I look at it at least once a day. And my handle is at Milan Vora. On Twitter, it's the same thing. I'm on all the platforms. I'm on LinkedIn. I have my author page on Facebook. Don't get worried if you get an automated response on the Facebook one. I'll get back to you. I look at it less, and I'm trying to wean myself off social media altogether, actually. But I do look at it once in a day, at least Instagram, yes.
Great. And you'll be sharing the link with us for where people can put up the reviews as well, right? So we'll put that in the episode.
I think I mailed it across to you today. I mailed it to Surohini, so you could have a look at that.
Awesome. Yeah.
Sure. So Milan, you have something very special coming out on Valentine's Day, which are 3 stories based on Valentine's Day. And tell us a little bit about them.
Yeah, so the other thing that happened, was while I was writing short stories, I also found that, the short format is something which I really enjoy. So I started then contributing short stories, which were purely in humor anthologies, and, which were also for young adult, which were getting into being more tongue-in-cheek, but, not like solid romance, kind of, more not so emotional, but, kind of more relevant to the age that you were writing for, which were like, say, around 18 to 20-year-olds. So that's again been a pretty fun part of, the whole writing thing. And now with Valentine's Day coming around, I decided that and because I recently, learned how to get on to Kindle and self-publish, I just decided, this is, for me, this is just a fun exercise, and I'm putting a book out, which comes out on Valentine's Day, which has 3 short stories. They're not terribly short. They're all like a nice kind of meaty sort of length of a story. And all 3 of the stories are about first love, So, but they're all, I think the nice thing is they're all pretty, they're fun. They're very young in terms of, the situations. The first one is called Sandwich Soulmates, and it's about, this bunch of friends who go to see a movie, especially for Valentine's Day. They're all kind of just before lockdown, let's say, they're set around that time,
nice.
Say end 2019. Yeah, that's not a
happier time.
Yeah, we don't want to remember 2020. So, yeah, so let's say that it happened on Valentine's Day 2020, just before lockdown happened. So this first story, Sandwich Soulmates, is about this group of friends who go. One of them insists that we must see a mushy movie because it's Valentine's Day. Then they kind of go off to the food court.
Okay.
And so the female protagonist here, she is very fussy about how she likes her sandwich, and the rest of her college gang are all into tala fala greasy stuff, and so she makes her way to get her sandwich. And what happens over there, the guy she sees over there. And I'll read an excerpt from there today. And the second story is about somebody who's just started, who's in college and who's got this, a college sort of a internship, part of ISEC, where she's being sent to Europe to intern at a company over there. And while she's there, she gets, she goes off to see her aunt and uncle, and then she's getting onto the train. So she's getting onto this super fast train, which is, going off to Brussels. And typically, you know how Indian uncle auntie will always say, "Zara beti ka dhyan rakhna," whatever, as if like first time travel kar rahi hai, to whatever. So there is this guy who's called Matthews. He's European, and he's sitting next to her, and then some crazy incidents happen on the train while they have kind of gone off to have a coffee in the dining car in the train. And this kind of relates to something where she shares something about a dream that she keeps having. Something in the conversation kind of takes it there.
Okay.
And it's really uncanny the way something comes together. There's quite a lovely surprise at the end of it, which is that part of, the title of the book, as I told you, is called Mates, Dates, and Double Takes. So Mates is about, this sandwich soulmates story where she's at the sandwich counter.
Nice.
The second one, this is on Double Takes, what happens in that train and after. And the third story is called A Blind Double Date.
Okay.
It's about these two girls who've been, they're young working professionals, and they meet on one of those women's trips, and this girl who's not really like a friend, but she's kind of a friend, and she insists like, "Come on, set me up with somebody, and I'll also set you up with somebody. Let's go." So this is also on. All of these are set on Valentine's Day. So she's kind of pushing, this girl to introduce her to somebody. So finally she says, "Okay, fine." And she calls a friend of hers. And this whole story is written in text. So everything is text going back and forth with each other.
Oh, how interesting.
Oh, wow.
And in text messages. Yeah, if you want, I could look for a piece and read from that also. So A Blind Double Date and what happens in that. Because it's like first the texts which are going on, like, let's do this blind double date. Then even while they're at the date, there are text messages going on from the loo to the other person who's texting away at the table, or where are you? Another person has gone off into the lobby. So all the events that are unfolding, you read only through these text messages.
Nice.
And again, there's an interesting surprise in terms of how that double date ends.
Awesome. Yeah.
Sounds really fun.
It's perfect to read especially in this month where everybody is kind of saying love is in the air, right? So
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this releases on Valentine's Day on Amazon Kindle, right?
Yes, and it's going to be free to read for Amazon for Kindle Unlimited subscribers, and I'll probably put it up for some tiny sort of amount for everybody else. So even if you don't have Kindle Unlimited, you can just buy it and get it on your phone and read it on the Kindle app. But it's a perfect kind of read for February.
Awesome.
Or if you like romance, for any time. Yeah.
Awesome.
And these are all about, like I said, these are 3 first love stories. So it's all about that first time that it happens.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Want me to read an extract?
Yeah.
This business of cutting class at the drop of a hat to catch any old morning show also really bugs me. Tickets aren't exactly cheap. Today's excuse was it's Valentine's Day, so it's mandatory to see a mushy movie. First of all, Valentine's Day is all crap in my opinion. Second of all, what is Netflix for? I mean, really? These guys have got super loaded folks and don't have pocket money issues like me. Thank God for Nani's kharchis. They arrive unfailingly for any given excuse and save me from constant brokedom. I reached for my bag as I watched the gang hotly debate between ordering chicken biryani, spring dosa. It's a cross between masala dosa and spring rolls, and deep fried masala-fried gobi manchuri. Not Manchurian, mind you. I'm going to get my usual, I said as I pushed my chair out. This girl though is half Angrez only, Tara drawled. I ignored her and walked away. I regret telling her anything. After my folks split up, mom has always had this chip on her shoulder about not taking any more from dad than she absolutely has to. I'm a bit like her that way. Anyway, last year mom got a teaching job in England, but then the economy crashed or whatever and we came back to Bangalore. Luckily, she got her old job back at CKP. I'm still thinking of a smart reply I could have given to Tara as I hear the guy in front of me at the sandwich cash counter Ask for the sub of the day. Sensible guy. It's Friday, so it's roast chicken sub day. My favorite. I've noticed most guys breeze in there with their buddies, blindly order the first thing that catches their eye, then dumbly nod when the sales guys push the add-ons. They'd rather look cool and say yes to everything than choose smart. Not this chap. When the cashier checks if he wants to order a salad or cookies with it, he sounds quite decisive as he tells him, no, just the sub of the day is fine. A rare bloke who knows his mind. The guy steps aside to the sandwich making counter. Good, I can get to my order faster. The cashier looks at me. He knows me. He should. I'm there often enough. Sub of the day for you also, right? He smiles. Yep. I take my change and step up right next to sensible guy with the super straight, slightly in need of a trim hair. The ends are curling out a little under his ears. What bread would you like? The sandwich guy asks. I noticed today it's Sundar on duty. We have Parmesan Italiano, oregano, whole grain, sensible guy, and I say almost at the same time. Sundar looks at me and grins. Your usual, right? Right. I like it. I like that these guys remember me and all the stuff I don't like. Sensible guy looks amused. Looks like you're a regular, he quips. Totally, I mumble, trying to think for once of something bright in response. You know, I won the Customer of the Month award. Look, I point to the photo of the auntie who owns the franchise in a kurta embroidered with big red roses and that pretend chiffon chunni with lace all along the edge. Sensible guy looks at me, squints at the picture on the wall. Brilliant, he grins. Your folks must be so proud. Look how great you turned out after all. Hey, I protest, confused. I'm not really sure if he's making a dig at me or the auntie on the wall. That could be who I want to be when I grow up. You mind? Okay, I know, it doesn't make sense, but I had to say something. I'm still thinking of a staggeringly witty comeback when Sundar cuts in, saving me the effort. Cheese for you, he asks sensible guy, who nods. Sundar continues to load my sandwich too with cheese and lots of the iceberg lettuce I love. Should I make it extra cheese? He asks sensible guy. No, this is cool. All the veggies, Sundar asks, he can get so doggedly single-minded. Hello, does he even care there was actually a conversation happening here? One sec, sensible guy bends to peer at the display. I figure I'll sneak a better look at him. Why not? People watching is the only thing that doesn't cost in these malls. Okay, looked. Even a super critical person like me can't really find anything to fault. The guy's got glasses, pretty okay frames, nothing radical like those red or purple ones. He's wearing a short whitish kurta, which could be straight off an Anjuna stall, and dark blue jeans. I like his bag. It's a weathered tan leather satchel with a retro kind of patchwork of peace symbols on one side panel. Very cool. But I ask myself, all this random curiosity, what's the point? For all I know, he could be called Rocky or something. To date, there's not a single guy I can say I have even been mildly interested in. If you ask me, Noah Centineo is a little too perfectly proportionate. And as for these Chris Hemsworth types that everybody seems to have weak knees over, I just can't take it seriously. Superheroes, six-packs, it's all too cliche, not my jam. You're making my sandwich too, na? I check with Sundar unnecessarily. Actually, he's doing a pretty efficient job of stacking cucumber and onion rings in threes. He's about to add some tomatoes into the sensible guy's sandwich when the guy perks up. Hey, no tomatoes in mine. My eyebrow shoots up in direct correlation to my interest. Yay! The word shoots out of my mouth. He looks at me and kind of shrugs as he explains. Can't stand them. Really? Why would anybody willingly eat tomatoes? I keep pulling them out of everything at home. Same here. I don't mind it if it's like tomato sauce, but that's it, he says, looking embarrassed. But I can tell he's dead serious about it, like I have been all my life. All right, so big coincidence and all. Let's not read too much into it, correct? I'm keeping a keen eye on my sandwich. I don't want anything that's a no-no to accidentally find its way into it. No gherkins or jalapenos also. Sensible guy with the pretty okay frames adds quickly to Sundar before any damage can be done to his sandwich. I'm glad to see there's one person on earth who has their head screwed on, right like me. Don't care for the stuff, he says to me with a wry kind of grimace. This is too cool. I've never met anyone till now who said no to tomatoes, gherkins and jalapenos. Totally, I chirp. How can I not? That sour taste just kills everything. Exactly, it can get overpowering. I swear to you, at this very minute, I could actually buy into Subi's theory of love at first sight. Or should I say love even before first bite?
That was nice. That was a good place to end it.
you wonder what goes inside the mind of an achiever? How do they manage to get back up on their feet in spite of their failures? Do they really do something different? You're absolutely right. Yes, they do. I'm Aditi Surana. Join me every Wednesday and Friday on my show Absolutely Right, where I use my special tool of handwriting analysis, also known as graphology, to interview high performers and study secrets behind their success and personality. You can catch us on the IVM Podcast app, website, or wherever you get your podcast from.
Namaskar, dear friends. My name is Ashish Vidyarthi. Life, as you know, is a journey. And you and I, travelers, how can we celebrate this travel? I have a podcast for you, Begin the Journey. I share stories and moments from my life. Do tune in every Monday and Thursday to listen to my podcast on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get your podcast from. Cheers.